Okay, as of today, the last episode of this first season to X-Men 97 has finally concluded. And here's my overall series review on the first season. I gotta be honest, it's pretty fantastic. It was I had expectations that it was gonna be good, considering that it was gonna be made under this separate Marvel animation thing that Marvel Studios opened, and they were gonna start doing separate things involving Marvel away from the MCU continuity and their own things, which I thought is a good idea, so they can have more freedom to do whatever they want with characters they usually can't do at the moment when it comes to the MCU. So I thought that making it separate was a good thing. But yeah, now that the entire series is out, and we waited. This show was announced in 2022, I think. So basically almost 2 years for something. And let me tell you, this feels like something that would take 2 years to make, because a lot of the aspects is just amazing. Especially as a continuation of the 90s series, it does a pretty good job. Let me talk about the animation. The animation on this show, I don't care what anyone says, the animation on this show is amazing. It is fantastic, especially when it comes to fight scenes. The detail they put in the fights, the detailed animation they put in when it comes to the fight scenes, and how certain characters use their powers in this show. Just the animation of it is done so well. I'm trying to think of a place to start. The animation, the details in the fight scenes is where I was. How it's done reminds me so much of the kind of details you'd find in anime. That's how the art style and animation felt to me. It felt very anime. And I will admit, there are some shots, especially in the first 2 or 3 episodes, that felt very stilted. But as the show went on, the animation, even when it comes to just characters just sitting around talking, still very well done, very detailed, very beautifully drawn. Animation was great. The animation alone is just nice to look at. I don't care what anyone says, it was great. And the character models, the designs, taken from the 90s show and just updated for the more modern way people would animate them, done very well. I love it. So, and the voice acting was really well done. The voice acting was good, especially in the more emotional moments that we get later in the series. I like the blend of new and old voice actors. Some of the older voice actors from the first series came back. We get newer voice actors for some characters as well. I thought the blending of them was very well done. It fit very well. What else? What else overall? I like how Disney Plus or Disney or Marvel Studios, or I don't know who I would specifically reference for this, but I like how this series felt more like it was taking chances and more dramatic and intense compared to more recent MCU projects, because this show gets intense and also kind of horny. I don't know, this show is very experimental in ways when it comes to like writing, and it goes into like even way more like a like not adult, like as in it's explicit, but like it's definitely geared to a more adult audience compared to like the 90s iteration of the show, considering that there are scenes where like when characters get hit, you see them bleeding. Like you will see blood in this show, not like over the top gore, but like when characters get hit badly, they'll bleed. Like they'll get like a busted lip or a cut somewhere on their forehead, like that kind of small detailed stuff. Like not too bad, but kind of like attention to detail kind of thing, which would never be able to get away with in a 90s show. So, and you also hear, and there are also the occasional like characters will swear, not like intense swears, like they'll say hell or damn it, to show how this is clearly a continuation that's grown up with like who's ever watched it back in the 90s. So it's like small things like that I don't know. I mean, I wasn't around in the 90s, so I can't really appreciate it in that aspect, but maybe someone who did grow up in the 90s and saw the original could appreciate the feel that it grew up with them in a sense. I don't know. I did not expect the I did not expect how genuinely serious the show was going to get, though, by like episode 5. And if you've seen the series, you know what I'm talking about. Episode 5 was like the real turning point of like, oh yeah, we're not like the old X-Men show. Like, shit is getting real now. Characters genuinely died. And not like died and then like in the very next episode we go back in time and fix it. Or like you just see them in an explosion and then you don't really see the body, just cuts away for like censorship reasons. No, you will actually see like implied like people genuinely getting like incinerated, or like dead bodies. And if you've seen episode 5, you know the kind of the specific death I am talking about when you realize, oh, this show is gonna get intense, and it only got more intense from there, and it's like, whoa. But yeah, I feel like I talked about some positives. Let's talk about some negative, not like super negatives, but like I guess small nitpicks that I'd have. This isn't like, I guess this is a big deal one, but I guess, okay, a first one, sometimes the pacing, let's talk about the pacing of this season or some of the episodes, because this is based on comics, so most of the episodes are going to be taking plot elements from various different comic runs and stuff. It felt like this season weirdly chose comic runs that were super long, and then even though they were super long and should have been divided in like 2 or 3 parters, they like tried to condense those stories down to like a 1 episode. I guess one of the best examples I can give is like they did a sort of adaptation of the Inferno storyline with like the Madeline Pryor, Jean Grey clone stuff. Now, if people read that original comic run, you know that story is like overarching, and the Inferno event especially goes on for a long time. Like, it's a long event. Here they just kind of condensed into like a 1 episode, and for what they did with it, it was fine. But considering the kind of stuff that is done with the character of Madeline Pryor in that storyline and how long it goes on for, like just for her character, it kind of feels like I can understand how it feels very rushed. It's like, okay, the first 2 episodes in the season, we are following Madeline Pryor, who we think is Jean Grey, and then the real Jean Grey supposedly what shows up, and then Madeline Pryor just suddenly becomes evil and also decides to call herself the Goblin Queen, and then she becomes good again, and then she leaves and also chose the name Madeline Pryor. I don't know how she came. Like all these things, like those basic beats that happened for her in the comics were like, they took a while for those to happen for her, and differently too. Because that's like a long character journey she went on. And here it just is condensed for like a 30-minute episode. It's like, how did you even decide to call yourself the Goblin Queen? How did you gain this ability to make them experience Dante's Inferno? How did you decide the name Madeline Pryor specific? Like, what? How are you doing these? And then she appears again in episode 5 and is sort of having a psychic affair with Scott, but then that doesn't really even matter, or gets resolved because she dies. And I don't know if she's gonna come back, but it was kind of just, I don't know how to explain it, just randomness choices with that character specifically. And there's kind of tension. Also, a lot of kind of character dynamics or things get resolved very quickly. Like the tension between Scott and Jean when the supposedly real Jean Grey returns is just like, and she kind of catches them telepathically cheating, and like all this drama, and then it's just kind of fixed or gotten over with by like the next episode. Like that drama and all that tension is just like cleared with. Like they just kind of moved on very quickly. So like, I don't know if they're gonna acknowledge it or do more next season, but like, I don't know, nothing is done with that. And then we have like the end where like Magneto briefly becomes evil again, and we have Rogue and Sunspot who join his side briefly and literally fight some of their X-Men teammates. And then by the end, which is this episode, this season finale episode, they're immediately on the same team again, and they seem to have been easily forgiven. Like no one is like at least a little on edge with them around, considering they chose Magneto's side. And it's like, yeah, I get they were your teammates before, and a lot of stuff has happened, but it's like, I feel like they were forgiven way too quickly, and just like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like just gotten over with very quickly. It was just, yeah. And speaking of that kind of specific characters, I want to talk about Sunspot real quick, who was like this sort of, when he was first introduced as like a new character for the team, it was kind of implied he was gonna be like this new point of view character, like basically take the place of what Jubilee was in the first series. But then like I watched the series and it's like, not to be mean or anything, but he ultimately didn't feel like necessary to the whole story. And what I mean by that is, there's nothing really special about the fact that Sunspot was chosen, like why out of any young X-Men or mutant characters that you could have put into the series did you choose Sunspot? Like if you wanted to reintroduce everything through like the perspective of a new young character, you could have like, I don't know, you could have brought back Cannonball, like we saw him in the last season of the previous show. Or if you wanted to do something specifically with New Mutant characters, we could have we could have done something with Danny Moonstar, brought Danny Moonstar in, um as the new point of view character. I don't think she ever made a cameo in the previous show, so that would have been something. Or maybe Karma too. Uh, um, not Wolfsbane, because we already saw Wolfsbane in the previous series. She was already part of X Factor. But you know what I'm talking about. And then they gave him this like unnecessary romance with Jubilee that, as time went on, I honestly couldn't care less about. Like, it just didn't feel natural to me. Like, honestly, as you know what, as like a compromise, if they wanted to give Jubilee like a love interest, why couldn't they have just why couldn't they just use Chamber? If you guys are familiar with the character Chamber, he's not a New Mutant. He's more of a Generation X character, which would make more sense because Jubilee is also more associated with Generation X, that team, and maybe you could have used that to like hint at more Generation X characters to appear later on down the series. But anyway, you could have introduced Chamber, and honestly, Chamber feels like a more interesting character for potential than Sunspot because they have similar angst, where like because of Chamber's whole powers, because of his powers, like literally half of his, like he can't control it, and half of his face and front body are missing, so he has to like cover it up and protect himself. Like he can't really talk and stuff. So there's always the potential he might lose control and hurt somebody. So you have like the whole angst thing going on with him that could have ended up giving, like it could have given him more interesting, like he could have been a more interesting character to do stuff in, and a more interesting character to write for because of that. At least that's what I feel personally. Also, him and Jubilee at some point do have a romantic relationship. Like they are together briefly as a couple in the comics. So you already have like that natural, like, oh, this is already a canonical love interest she had if you wanted to give her a love interest. So that's also a plus. So like, yeah, in my weird one hypothetical thing, would have just make just give Chamber Sunspot's role, basically to just put Chamber in instead. And yeah, that's me being self-indulgent because I like Chamber a lot. I like the character of Chamber in the comics, and I really want him to be adapted or acknowledged more outside of the comic form media. So, or just the characters of Generation X in general to be acknowledged more, because I like that team. But yeah, anyway, that's enough rambling about that specific nitpick. But what else? What else did I want to bring up? But yeah, you know what? Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the stupid love triangle they did this season. And by love triangle, I don't mean the typical one with Wolverine, Cyclops, and Jean. They introduced this new love triangle with Rogue, Gambit, and Magneto. And let me tell you, I already don't like love triangles as it is, but the fact that this show even briefly entertained the Magneto Rogue relationship just makes me feel all kinds of icky. like, I understand it's something that happened in the comics, and I understand they wanted to give more drama and more more drama and more of a hurdle for Rogue and Gambit's relationship. But I just, the way they wrote it, like, and it's portrayed, and the implication, at least I feel behind it, in like the context and the implication behind it just don't feel okay. They're not okay. It does not feel good. It's not good. It doesn't feel right to me. I like there's all kinds of things. Like, it isn't just the age gap. It's like this, the flashback where this context of like she was just left with him, and as in like a flashback, and I was just like, oh, I don't like that sort of parallel someone could gleam onto that. Like, oh. It's it's just that, whew, I just don't know what the writers or creator of the show was thinking, introducing that love triangle in the show. I just, it's just, I don't know. I don't even know what else to say, especially considering, if spoilers for the series, considering that in episode 5 Gambit dies, and we learn later that Magneto survived, and as I said, he briefly goes back to being evil and stuff. So, but then he goes back to maybe being good. I don't know, but considering, but considering the considering the po- but considering the post credit scene we get with Apocalypse. I mean, this is already a fan theory that started immediately after Gambit died, but the fan theory that Apocalypse was going to revive some characters so they could be his horsemen of the apocalypse, and Gambit was going to be one of them. Maybe be resurrected as his horseman of death, like in the comics. Like, I was behind that theory, but now that the post-credit scene that came with the final episode was shown, I can definitely say, oh yeah, they're definitely gonna do that in some way next season. But yeah. What else? Yeah, didn't like. Yeah. In summary, did not like the Rogue Magneto thing. Not a fan at all. Disliked it. Um. What else? What else do I want to bring up? I guess. I mean, it sucked that Gambit died, but bright side, we got Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler's now on the team. He was on the team now. It seems for the time being. He got his own title card, so that's cool. Um, I really liked how he was used. I like that we got to see him fight with like his sword skills. We got to see, that was cool. He utilized much better than he was in the '90s series. At least he was much more in this time around. Which made me very happy. And I like the acknowledgement of him and Rogue being like siblings, even if it's like adopted siblings. I like that acknowledgement of them being family, because I don't feel like we get that a lot. So the fact that they acknowledged it a lot here, their siblings, family, I really appreciated. Also, just the general like heartwarming moments of this show I enjoyed. I enjoyed the conflict with Scott and Jean and Cable when he showed up again, and like them having a fraught relationship when it comes to like how Cable feels about his parents, and just that there those small sweet moments between the three of them, especially in the final episode, that conversation they have before a majority of the X-Men get sent to or scattered through different parts in time. Like I really like that, was very heartwarming. And it was the most I've ever cared about that relationship. Like Cyclops or Jean Grey, they're fine characters, but I've never really felt that emotional attachment to them. This series has definitely changed that a little bit for me. I liked how they were portrayed here, especially when it comes to like their parental relationship with Cable. I really liked how it was done here in this show. I feel like this show had a problem with deciding who it wanted the villain to be. Because, I mean, yeah, we got Bastion in the 3-part finale. But then we also have Sinister, and now we have a tease of Apocalypse. And it's like, well, is Bastion actually really dead? Is Sinister gone? Like, sure, Jean took out some of his DNA and now he, like, aged super old. But then they just let him run off. It's like he could probably fix that with science. Like, his experiment on himself again and just make himself useful again. Like, I don't know. Like, why did you just let him run off? But I don't know. Again, a lot to come back to for season 2. It's just like, I don't know. Also, Bastion. Everything with Bastion kind of just happened very quickly with him. I feel like we didn't get to see him. I feel like he wasn't foreshadowed or hinted at enough for us to really feel, for it really to feel like deserved to be him viewed as like a genuine threat. Like I feel like he became a threat, like has to be considered a threat like out of nowhere. Like I'm impressed when it happens. Like maybe if they had foreshadowed him or had a hint of him in like at the end of the first episode, and because I know they had small cameos with him throughout the series, like in the background, so maybe if they did like a big hint involving him, like maybe if they did like a big hint with him in the very first episode, and then like you can go back and when you rewatch it after you see that hint of him, and then you see he's there like in the background of every single episode until like the big 3-part finale, it would feel more interesting or something. Like, oh, that guy we saw at the end of the first episode was here the whole time, building up, and like, oh, like more build up. I think that's the word I was looking for. Like, I wanted more build up with Bastion, because then he just appears at the end of episode like 7. Yeah, episode 7, and then he's suddenly just supposed to be a big threat. But it just feels kind of rushed with him. But I mean, I still thought the way they wrote him, he was still like a pretty intense antagonist. I thought Theo James, who was the big star they got to voice him, did a really good job sounding like slimy and stuff. But again, I think it's just like a pacing problem when it comes to like this thing. But and that ending, like that big finale of all the X-Men being scattered through time, we see the future with with Mother Ascani. We see some of them going to the past with a young Apocalypse in Egypt. So yeah, gonna be everything that was implied and hinted at, especially with the post credit scene we get with Apocalypse. Everything going on there. Sure to have a very exciting season 2. Too bad we're gonna have to wait like a year until we see any more where that goes. But I'll definitely be waiting and will be very excited for it. So yeah, I guess those are all my overall random thoughts on X-Men 97. Overall, a good and enjoyable time, if not with small issues. Nothing that really bothered my enjoyment of the show, but just small issues here and there. Hopefully season 2 will improve on them, because I can see that. Let me just say I can see why the show almost took like 2 years to come out, because there was clearly a lot of hard work put into it. Like a lot of hard work and care was put into this project. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. Just a few issues here and there. Again, nothing too bad. Something I can see season 2 improving on. But that's it. An 8 out of 10. Still would highly recommend, especially if you're like a Marvel X-Men fan. Especially of the 90s series. Good continuation. So yeah, that's basically it. If you've seen X-Men 97, what were your opinions on the show overall? Please comment below. Please comment below, and please like and subscribe. This has been just some fangirl, and we are out.